Oh, hello, it's Fran here. Just to let you know that this is a little cheeky, bite-sized, over-underrated episode for Eurovision, where we're going to chat about a documentary we both saw recently, and I've sprinkled over the episode some of Bab's friends and family discussing all things Eurovision. Thanks for listening.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, what are we calling this podcast?
Was it over-underrated?
Over-underrated. Sous-évalué. Överschätzt. Överunderskattad. Over-underrated.
Welcome to a Eurovision 2023 bonus. You thought us reviewing 37 tracks was all we were going to do for Eurovision this year? You were incorrect. We have more to chat about when it comes to Norwegian Yellow Space Wolves. But before that, I am Babs, and I'm here with my co-host, Fran. How are you, Fran?
Hello, Europe. I hope you're all doing well out there. I'm fine, but this is an unusual record.
It is an unusual record because basically what happened, guys, was we saw there was a documentary about Subwoolfer, the band that we talked about in our 2022 Eurovision episode. I remember messaging Fran and saying, Fran, we should absolutely talk about this on our Eurovision record. And then we probably both forgot. So we decided to hop on and do a short little bonus to, again, talk about some Norwegian Yellow Space Wolves.
Big fan of wolves.
So, well, before we get into it, I think we have to ask each other, of course, Fran, what have you been listening to this week?
I have been listening to the year 2003 as an entire...
The whole year?
The entire year.
You're doing a James Acaster 2003 Best Year for Music?
Well, I was going through my saved playlist, and back in the olden days, I would make a mix CD of the year. And I then thought, these are either lost or scratched. So I've been going back year by year, trying to work out my top 40 of each year, as you do. And I've now gone back to 2003. So I can now tell you what I've been listening to for the past 20 years, which no one will care about apart from myself. But
I think people will care.
Although I have slightly cheated because I've deleted... Previously, I had Marilyn Manson and Lost Prophets and some of those years. I've now, I don't know. I don't feel good. I don't know what to feel about that. Really, is that bad for me to do?
Yeah.
That? I don't know.
Oh, it's always the difficult conversation. I was having this conversation of it's so personal, isn't it? And I think it depends how big the crime is as well. Obviously, saying something terrible is very different to doing something terrible.
Yes, Arcade Fire survives, but.
Well, there we go.
But Marilyn Manson and Lost Prophets obviously the worst one because he's in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Marilyn Manson should be.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, what's happened to it? It's weird, isn't it?
Oh, who knows? Who knows? But no, that's too depressing. Well, what's the most unexpected track for the people who know you that's on your 2003 list?
Loads up Spotify. Although I was trying to be good, I was trying to think of what I put originally, so I have gone back to make myself seem more cool than I was back in those days.
Okay, I should hope not in this safe space.
I have on there Tattoo, a problematic band since that happened. Who else do I have? Hell is for Heroes.
I remember them. I could not hum you a tune by them.
A bit more heavier than I usually. I put on Where Is the Love by Black Eyed Peas because I think in 2003 I did like it, so I can't lie to myself.
I take it back. I do judge you because that is one of the worst Black Eyed Peas songs.
Yeah, but...
it's not I Got a Feeling, but you know.
Yeah, Let's Get Retarded. That was a.
Oh yeah. God, yeah.
I've got Move Your Feet Junior Senior. I've got 99 Problems Jay-Z. I've got Minerva, Deftones, Just Because, Jane's Addiction.
God, Deftones and Jane's Addiction. That does surprise me.
So there you go.
That's a great. Strays is a great Jane's Addiction album.
Yeah, I remember. I think that's maybe the first song I ever heard by Jane's Addiction. I think they're one of those bands you hear about, but in America they're massive. In UK, no one really knew them. So
yeah. I think that's also the first song I heard of them because it was a song that was always on MTV. And Farrell in a vest, gilet, perhaps?
Probably. And Dave Navarro, probably topless, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think I always think about how when people talk about equality in music, how they criticize so many female acts for dressing scantily clad. I'm like, no one has ever told Dave Navarro, Anthony Kiedis, or Iggy Pop to put on a shirt. When they do, that's when we'll have true equality.
But so yourself, what have you been listening to?
So I have been listening to a Portuguese band with an incredibly difficult to pronounce name because it is a tongue twister. They are called Três Tristes Tigres, which means three sad tigers. And I've messaged you about them before, Fran. I think I listened to a song of theirs and thought you might like it. So someone on the website God's Jukebox shared a live version of Estado de Espírito, and it's really, really good. And I was like, God, I listened to one song by this band and didn't explore further. So I've been further exploring the back catalogue. Also the back catalogue of a Portuguese band called Lefty, literally Lefty. So I've been getting into my Luso music. But also I've been really getting into Queen Kong's 2022 album, which was about her breakup with Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit. Did you hear about this story and what happened where he tried to sue her?
No, I know Wes. Oh, really?
You know Wes from down the pub. So they were a couple. Queen Kwong is someone who, she was discovered by Trent Reznor very young and has continued making great music ever since. And she married Wes Borland and they divorced. And then he tried to sue her because he said that she was kind of ruining his reputation by talking about the fact that they got divorced and talking about their relationship on this album because it's called Couples Only, the album. And thankfully it was dismissed because I think that is a very dangerous precedent to set. And for one musician to do that to another, fuck you, Wes. I know you have some good music, but fuck you nonetheless. So I'd heard Morning Song from the album, but not much more. And God, the whole album is really good. And it's really emotional because you just feel that it's about, someone going through this tumultuous change. And Morning Song is spelt Mourning. And it ends with her saying, morning will break your heart. Oh, so if you're feeling like you want to support some women and be sad at the same time, Queen Kwong's the one for you.
All hell, Queen Kong.
Indeed.
Hello, my name is François Diderrich. I'm 62 years old from Luxembourg. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and at that time I didn't want to miss any Eurovision Song Contest. In the 80s, 90s, as I was a student and I was working, I kind of lost the habit. It was not on my radar, but later on with friends, I rediscovered it. And when I watch Eurovision, it has to be with friends. It's a totally different feeling and it's much more fun because you see a lot and you have to comment on it a lot immediately. What I like about Eurovision is the diversity, not only of the music, but also of the visual, the costumes and the staging. What I miss a little bit, it's mainly in English now. In the 60s, 70s, I think it was the rule, it had to be the language of the country. But I think that really isn't so bad either that it's in English. You can understand what they are singing. Anyway, there are still many different details to watch and to listen to. The fact that Luxembourg isn't in it since 1994, of course, it takes away, as a Luxembourger, a little bit of the suspense, but it doesn't take away the interest I have in this show. But of course, it would be a different feeling to it.
So, we wanted to watch a documentary about Subwoolfer. So Subwoolfer were last year's Eurovision entry for Norway. They were these two people dressed up in yellow wolf suits and DJ Astronaut, lest we forget. And they made quite a splash at Eurovision because they had this very funny song called Give the Wolf a Banana with a fun dance routine. But what kind of kept the mystique up was the fact that they were always wearing these masks. You didn't know who they were. And there was a lot of speculation about who they were and what it could be. And I hadn't realized this until watching the documentary, but they caused a lot of havoc in the kind of PR side of promoting at Eurovision because they always did interviews in their masks and basically their producer would have to interpret what they were doing. And Eurovision itself, this is on the Eurovision Song Contest channel, released this half-hour documentary called Worst Kept Secret, the Subwoolfer documentary. And Fran and I sat down to watch it and have taken a few notes and are here to talk about it, basically, because we thought it was quite entertaining.
We should note that the producer didn't want to be on TV at all, and they forced him to be their interpreter, even though his English wasn't even that great, which they found even funnier.
Yeah, I mean, I just love how nothing was decided beforehand. They would just do hand signals, and he'd have to interpret them. But just it was really fantastic. And there's a few videos on YouTube which is like called stuff like Subwoolfer being the most comforting people ever, 20 minutes of Subwoolfer being chaotic, and that is quite entertaining. So in this documentary, we find out that at the Melodi Grand Prix, which is the Norwegian show for selecting the song for Eurovision, this year, Subwoolfer were revealed, and it turns out to be Ben Adams from the boy band A1, a British guy who's lived in Norway for a while, and Gaute Ormesson, who is a Norwegian singer and was on Idol in 2003. Yeah, it was quite funny because basically already, and we talked about this on the podcast in 2022, there was a lot of speculation already before the song had even gone to rehearsals or anything that it could be these two guys. And in this documentary, you see how it comes together. So Ben and Gaute wrote the song in a songwriting camp. They wanted to try and find an artist to sing the song rather than them, because they didn't want to sing it after the Norwegian broadcaster showed interest in doing it for Eurovision. And when no one took up the mantle, they were like, okay, we're going to do it, but we want to be anonymous. And that's how this whole Yellow Wolves thing came up. And the documentary, you see as well that Gaute, who's the person doing most of the singing, isn't one of the wolves. He's in fact DJ Astronaut, who's on the stage because he found it too difficult to do the dancing and the singing. And yeah, the way the story is told in the documentary is interesting because they're recreating the moments as if they had happened just now. And Ben Adams is really representing Armani, is it? Throughout the whole documentary, he's wearing the same hat and the same shirt throughout.
And Porsche's? Was it a Porsche's car?
Oh, probably, yeah, with BA1 as his...
It's like, it must have a lot more money than I imagined, to be fair. It's interesting. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. So can you have an Englishman writing a song as well as a Norwegian being chosen for Norway? Is that allowed? Yeah, as long as one person's Norwegian.
Oh, 100%. I was just with my stepfather, Francis, not you, Francis, this weekend, and I don't think any of the times Luxembourg won Eurovision was it with a Luxembourgish person writing or singing.
I always thought that their song had to be completely written by that country. Well,
I don't think so.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting how I think Ben made it more comical than Gaute first wanted.
Yeah, I think from the recreation bit, it sounded like Ben was just absolutely taking the piss, and they were not having it. But he would really try to convince them.
And then once he realised he can rhyme banana with grandma, I thought, yeah, okay, I'm on board. But I was shocked by the revelation that he was the DJ. I always thought it was kind of weird why they even added a DJ to the performance. It seemed like, do we need to have that guy? But yeah, and that turns out that he was secretly singing the entire time, and there was just a dancer parading around as if he was the singer. And it was quite funny. So when they won the Norwegian final, Gaute hugged the wrong wolf. he hugged the dancer.
Because it was so difficult to see out of it. But yeah, I mean, coming into the documentary, I was like, am I about to watch a 27-minute documentary about the fake identity of a Norwegian Eurovision act? I had to kind of take a step back a little bit. But the way the story was told, I thought was quite good. The flashbacks where they're meeting with the Norwegian broadcaster and trying to come up with an artist. Even Alexander Rybak makes an entry being like, oh, like, I'll only sing the song if I can meow like a cat or whatever it is. I thought that was quite entertaining. And I kind of had no idea that their success kind of continued after Eurovision.
I didn't know that either.
And that they'd gone massive on TikTok. But what's interesting as well is, as they say in the documentary, it doesn't have to be just Ben and Gaute, the original people in it. And they tell this very funny story about them being on the British TV show Big Fat Quiz of the Year, where Gaute couldn't make it, and Ben got his wife to come along and pretend to be in Subwoolfer. And it was really funny to read the YouTube comments of like, oh, that's why they were different heights every time. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, in this kind of age of AI and replacements, it feels like a very apt band for our time.
Yeah, I had no idea that they had even been recording songs previous to Eurovision, of doing loads of spoof songs written in a hotel room and filming videos just for YouTube.
Yes,
It's like
exactly.
I missed that. And yeah, I think they said that before their performance in Eurovision they had 10,000 followers, and after Eurovision they had like 550,000, and I assume they're probably nearly hit a million. And also, it became like big around the world. And they're still doing like songs now. They did a song specifically for that documentary, the World's Worst Secret. Yeah, I'm surprised that like the press were taking it that seriously, trying to find out who they were.
Yes.
When they're scouting every single car in a car park to see if they can match the drive license to a celebrity or a musician, and that's how they found out that Ben must be one of them. Because obviously, as you mentioned a minute ago, his number plate unfortunately for him is BA1, which couldn't be more on the nose for him. But yeah, that was bizarre.
But it's funny, they talked about Masked Singer, right? And I guess that was an inspiration behind this, because Gauta kept saying like, oh, of course people are going to recognize my voice. And I was thinking like, well, no, not necessarily. People, and Ben says as well, and I heard, I was listening to the official Eurovision Song Contest podcast, Fran, which I'm not sure I knew existed before about 5 days ago. But Ben was saying like, oh, for sure A1 fans will know what A1 sounds like. And I was thinking like, I'm a huge 5 fan, okay? Yep. But I would not guess it would be Scott from 5 singing on a song if I couldn't see his spiky hair and lovely blue eyes. You can't, especially if it's in a context that's so divorced from a boy band, right? So
yeah, I mean, I'm embarrassed to not spot Martin Harkett in the UK Masked Singer, who even fucking sang "Take on Me."
I didn't realise.
No, but he did the acoustic slowed down version. But because he didn't do the high note and everything, admittedly on Masked Singer, they do try to disguise their voice a little bit. So he was singing in a low register. But you think a guy who's heard Morten sing like thousands and thousands of times. So yes, out of context, it is hard sometimes to imagine that's your favourite singer, etc., etc. And I like A1, but I couldn't straight away tell you what Ben sounds like.
There. If it's not doing that, I'm not going to know Ben. Sorry, man.
Hi, Fran and Babs. It's Ceri here from Playlist Yeah. And I know you want a tip for what to do with Eurovision. What are the hot tracks? And I don't have any tips for it because I haven't heard any. But that is my tip. Don't listen to anything. Just watch the show and spontaneously pick your favourite song which comes up and wait for those Eurovision bangers and then the one which is actually good. And just roll with it. Get a flag, wave it around. And that's the only tip I got. Now I'm just rambling, so I'll see you later. Take care. Team Germany, come on!
I mean, it must be really hard to be travelling all around countries, having to hide your identity. So when they were on planes, they had like some sort of like Daft Punk style masks on.
Yes, they did. Yeah, and in the competition as well, they were walking around with these kind of visors.
Yeah, so we're doing that for that amount of time, when everyone's also saying we know who you are as well.
But I wanted like. Obviously, people in Norway cared a lot more than people anywhere else. Although I guess within the world of Eurovision, they would have cared. But again, on this Eurovision Song Contest podcast, Gauta was saying how at one point in Turin, he was in a cafe and he was having a coffee and he heard some people speaking Norwegian next to him, like Norwegian journalists, and he ran and didn't even pay for the coffee. He just legged it out of the cafe because he's like, well, if they see me as a Norwegian person who has been tapped to be one of the people, I would have bet money that it was the Ylvis brothers, not really? Ben and Gauta. But I don't know enough about the Norwegian music scene, really. But I thought comedy, music, good people, I thought it would have been more up this.
It's interesting that, two guys who are in the pop world were... The whole reason they wanted to be in a disguise because they thought it might hurt their career if people knew this thing. It's like, well, I mean, you're in A1, mate, so I don't know how serious. But I mean, it's not like they're
Remember what Dan said about the A1 fans being
really? But it's not like they're in like a very like overly serious, mature indie band. It was like a fun pop band. So okay, I mean, you had a music video of you flying around.
Well.
So yeah. So I thought, okay, so I don't know if that's them being 100% serious or not. But they think it damages their career.
I mean, I guess it's a really flighty world, isn't it? Things can change from one moment to the next. And while I think people are taking Eurovision more and more seriously these days, there is still that association that like, oh, it's not a serious competition. I mean, again, I've listened to quite a few episodes of the Eurovision Song Contest podcast, and man, are some, performers and songwriters taking it really, really damn seriously.
Have you listened to many of the other songs by Subwoolfer or?
I haven't. So I only saw. I didn't realize they'd done so many parody songs. Well, they were there. Have you heard some more?
Well, I've heard Chawin, 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 and they did a version of was Hey Jude and singing.
Yes.
Was it Grandma Yum 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 Yum?
You don't need to check it out, guys. Fran has got it.
Yeah.
No, perfect.
I don't know if they've got an album out that they might do for this Christmas. But yeah, and then last month or maybe last March, on the next Norwegian Grand Prix, they revealed themselves to the public, and everyone was, and lots of YouTubers were pretending to be blown away by it all. But I mean, if you're into Eurovision, I'm pretty sure they knew. At least Ben.
I mean, no, but they again in this podcast that I heard, they said that the reaction when they started taking off the gloves, because that's how it started. They didn't even take the masks off first. They just, revealed the gloves to reveal some arms. They were like, the reaction was absolutely insane. And I mean, they really hyped that up in the documentary where they show these compilation of all these Eurovision YouTubers being like, oh my God, it's happening. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like this is the third year of us doing like the Eurovision analysis before watching Eurovision. And yeah, I feel myself getting suckered in to these mega fans who know everything in advance and, follow these people. Like, oh, Fran, you might have to save me from the Eurovision black hole.
I mean, the biggest curveball is when we find out that Daft Punk is also Ben Adams from A1.
Well, it's not because
I know.
Well, just to say, one of the guys from Daft Punk is of Portuguese origin. He's called Guy Manuel Dom Cristo. So, sorry, Ben, you can't have that one.
There's a very good documentary on Daft Punk, which reveals that.
Is it on YouTube?
I don't know. It's when it came out. I believe I might have even paid for it. Imagine that. It reveals their indie guitar band past before they became the Daft Punk we know now.
This is your good friend Les, and these are two of my students. So I asked them to talk about Eurovision and what their thoughts were. They'll introduce themselves, their names, ages, and where they study.
Okay, I'm Sofia, I'm 14, and I study in the British International School of Tbilisi.
I'm Elene, I'm 15, and I study in the same school as Sofia.
As you are both Georgians, what does Eurovision mean to Georgia?
I feel that Eurovision to Georgians means that it's sort of like representation for our country on a much larger scale than we would usually on a much larger platform. And I feel like governmentally speaking and economically speaking, it's also a great way to increase tourism rates, to show that like we exist.
Yeah, it mostly just shows the traditions and the basis of the cultural ideas and how our singing and all that kind of stuff has been brought by history.
Okay, finally, your impressions, feelings about this year's Georgian entry for Eurovision.
I mean, it's a song. I feel that nowadays Eurovision in general and also the song entry from Georgia has become very westernized compared to what Georgia used to give for the competition.
Yeah, over the past years, it has been very westernized. It doesn't really show any cultural idea, anything. It doesn't really bring anything to the people. The definition of what Eurovision used to be, it used to be different cultures and different nations just coming together and sharing different songs that used to derive their culture and also history. So now it has been most of the countries nearly have the same exact song and the same idea of loving the country or freedom. Or
for example, with our song, I read the lyrics and I'm pretty sure it isn't even about our country or anything like that. It has nothing to do with our culture. And all of, I don't want to be rude, but I feel like all of the songs that I listen to, they all seem the same. They all seem to be carbon copies with the melodies changed a little bit and maybe the words as well. But they all sound the same. They don't.
But yeah, Eurovision is also kind of used for an atmosphere for young singers to get better performance and future career. So.
But yeah, so. Since we last spoke, have you changed your mind on any of the Eurovision songs we picked, or?
I have been listening to the Finnish entry more. I think. And as mentioned, my beloved father, Paulo, and his beloved husband, Francis, stayed over with me this weekend, and they hadn't heard any of the Eurovision songs. So we had our own kind of mini Eurovision, and I showed them about half, maybe. And that meant that a lot of songs were in my head all weekend because I was, listening to them again, playing to them again. So I think my favorites remain my favorites, but I have been listening to Finland more than Serbia, so let's see.
Yeah, I've played my 5 picks to people, to my family and work, and there's a lot of love for Finland. Not so much love for Sweden as I thought. So I think Finland might do well.
Well, this is what we talked about how I think part of the reason why Sweden is doing so well is because it's Loreen and the law of Loreen. Thank you very much. I will see myself out. So I think it really depends on who is voting. Is it only going to be the fair weather Eurovision ears, who some of them who talked on our podcast about only watching the songs on the finals, or are the Eurovision mega fans going to be voting to the max? I am very excited to watch the semi-finals. I don't think I have known the songs as well as I do this year because, not only did we do the podcast, but I had this whole showing my family the Eurovision songs as well. So I am looking forward to singing along to the good ones and hoping that Poland does not make it past the semi-finals. Let's see.
And my colleague reminded me that John Lydon also tried to enter for Ireland and didn't make it. And considering that we both thought the Irish song was terrible, I mean, that's a slight on John Lydon's career. That's a little touch. But I have been listening more and more. And yeah, I still think that maybe Lithuania is my favourite of the 5 I chose. But again, the odds haven't changed much.
Well, yes, because after we record this, the first rehearsals have started. So again, I've picked up a few random things about how, for example, I know that Portugal changed their staging ever so slightly. But this is what I mean. I'm like, why am I caring about rehearsals for Eurovision, Fran? Like, what is happening to me? We are discussing a documentary about yellow wolves, and I'm talking about staging. Is this what being a football fan is like? I think I'm having a nervous breakdown.
I'm looking at the odds. I'd be pleased to know that Lithuania has now pushed up and is now the 26th favourite, which means it would be making the finals. That's good news. Spain, a song I can barely remember, is up to 5th. The front 3 are still the same: Sweden, Finland, and Ukraine.
Ukraine?
Yeah, because obviously, I guess there's still a war one.
Interesting. But anyway, to I guess wrap up, I think if you enjoy a well put together music documentary, it is worth checking out the Subwoolfer documentary and reading the comments as well. Always a fun time. And yeah, I do wonder if more people are going to do this in future. If who knows, if Dua Lipa might wear a wig and come on for the UK, why not?
And I will be looking out for the secret singers. Is the dancer at the back secretly the lead singer? Keep your eyes on the stage at all times. So until next time, guys.
Adieu.
Hi, I'm Paulo Mendes-Jorge. I'm Babs's dad. I've watched Eurovision since around about 1969. As I said, I think in the episode that I recorded, season 2, episode 2, what I liked most about it was the language diversity in those days. It's something I look forward to now. This year, it's only in the last few days that I've started to listen to the entries. Yeah, there's as usual several I like. The Portuguese entry from my own country, I think Portugal can go into the contest with its head held high. Whether it's a winning entry is another matter, but I like the production values, I like the interpretation of the music, the performance of Mimicat. But my favorite entry for this year, in fact, is the spoof New Zealand entry by the group Two Hearts called Eurovision Open Up. Eurovision being presumably the word Eurovision with a New Zealand accent. So who knows, maybe New Zealand will also join one of these years, and meanwhile I thoroughly recommend you watch Two Hearts with Eurovision.
Thanks for tuning in to this special Eurovision 2023 episode. And of course, thank you to all our special European guests. That is my dad, Paulo, my stepdad, François, Ceri Mitchell from Playlist Year, and of course, the Les Pemberton and students Sofia and Elene from the British International School of Tbilisi, Georgia. We hope you're enjoying this Eurovision week. And if you don't like Eurovision, don't worry, it will be back to normal next week. But in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, we are at OU Music Pod on Twitter, at Overunderrated Music Pod on Instagram, and you can email us overunderratedmusicpod@gmail.com. For the Eurovision appreciators amongst you, I will say cha 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 cha. See you next time.